My book is called Clear, Bright Future, A Radical Defense of the Human Being. And I've written it because I think we're in trouble. I think you'll know, because it's a philosophy festival, that the Enlightenment is a bit of a contested idea. But if we're not careful, we'll just lose it. A 400-year intellectual tradition, quite easy to lose it. And I want to explain to you why I think that is possible and what we can do about it. There are three crises facing developed world democracies. Number one, we've got an economic system that no longer works for enough people. Many people can't see how their children have a better life than they can. Those of us in economics who study the sources of long-term growth as measured by GDP can't see much of it. What growth there has been from sources that are not really sustainable in aging societies and in already developed societies, and in societies that are already $250 trillion in debt. That's the first problem. As a result of this, but as a result of other things that I want to explore with you, the second crisis is the evaporation of consent for democracy, universal human rights, and the rule of law. You can see this everywhere you go. Every week I have a habit of trying to collect headlines that substantiate this idea. The latest one was a piece in Die Zeit, the German newspaper. Hungary is lost, it said. Civil society and the institutions are rubble. Hungary, EU member, NATO member. And the third crisis is one I don't think many people associate well enough with the other two. And that is the crisis of technological control. The tendency of elites and states to use the vast asymmetry of power handed to them by new information technologies, big data, artificial intelligence yet to come largely, and algorithmic control very much here. The danger that they assume control of our lives, our thoughts, our behaviors at a scale not really experienced in human history. They have the power, in other words, on a scale that the Egyptian pharaohs had over some of their subjects. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just Google the word Xinjiang or Uyghur and alongside it, health check. 1 million Chinese citizens are being subordinated to compulsory DNA testing, compulsory health check, and minute-by-minute behavioral control in camps that the Chinese government has brought them into to alter their behavior. And you might think, terrible though that is in Xinjiang, the technology is already being exported to 18 non-Chinese countries. Population influence technology. Not, of course, to Britain, only to Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Kenya. Economics, politics, technology. The three crises are linked. And I think this is the source of one of the things that I, as a journalist, and you possibly in your lives, experience a lot. We're living through a period of technological euphoria, but geopolitical doom. I meet people at business conferences who are all too ready to get the PowerPoint out and tell you what their 10 or 15-year technology pipeline is, how they're going to go from this to this to this, 4G, 5G. And then in the bar afterwards, they're all discussing the big question among rich people: buy an island or accumulate gold. What's your survival mechanism? How many guns are you going to put on the island? The two emotions are both rational, because the title of my book is non-ironic. I believe that information technology, those of you who know my work, I believe information technology gives us the ability to design a new path beyond market and hierarchical-based societies such as capitalism. But more than that, it is liberatory for the human being. Less work, greater knowledge, greater access to knowledge, less commercial ownership of knowledge, and more freedom are all things, I would argue, implicit in information technology. So the technological euphoria for this century is right. the geopolitical doom is also right, because at every stage of human history, we have advanced technology in the form of hierarchical societies that always reach a breaking point. At a certain point, and those of you who know my work will know who's the inspiration of this assertion, at a certain point, the technology clashes with the social relations of production. Copyright, Karl Marx, 1858. But it's right, and that's what I think we're living through. For me, as I reported these crises morphing from the economic crisis of 2008 through to the social unrest of 2011, through to around 2014-15, where I think this new far-right, authoritarian, misogynist racism took off, I've come to the conclusion that there is a deeper crisis, and it is what I call in the book the crisis of the neoliberal self. That is, the selves we created to cope with the world of 30 years of free market economics were very good at negotiating atomized relationships, two-dimensional, non-metaphoric, homo economicus forms of activity. Everything was economics. Neoliberalism, one of the best definitions of it is given by William Davis, the Goldsmiths University economist, who says it was the disenchantment of politics by economics. You could replace the word disenchantment with evisceration. Everything political was reduced to economics, and therefore our behaviours, and in the book I try and sort of write a history of how the demonstrative behaviour of states taught us to behave like this, our behaviours adapted to everything being economics. The problem is that it worked for a while. It actually felt good. The more you adapted to acquisitive, individualistic, competitive behaviours, the more better you felt. And for some people, life was good. The bottom half of society in the world rose. Many people in places like this got richer, asset richer. But in 2008, it stopped working. In fact, it stopped working so bad that it nearly blew up the world economy. I covered that, close up. I think I was surprised, even though I was kind of on the doomy side of economics even before that, I was surprised by how quickly the thing disintegrated. And what I think happened is that then, at that point, it became a little bit like when a religion stops explaining the world. One of these old religions, sort of the one at a certain time on a certain day, the sun will definitely not come up. Well, it comes up, boom, end of religion. What happens when a religion stops explaining the world, when a religion dies? In general, unless some bright spark says, look, I've got an even better religion than this, what tends to happen is people go, well, what were the old religions? What did we used to believe? And you know what we used to believe, because it's back. Racism, white supremacy, colonialism, misogyny, and the worship of powerful thieves. That's back. To try and explain why I think this happened, I want to just give you a straightforward analogy. Suppose I asked you, seriously, to subordinate every decision in your life to that of an intelligent machine. So the machine can outthink you. The machine can outthink any human being. You should run past the machine all decisions like who should I date, who should I love, where should I live, where should I send my kid to school, what should the government do, and what can't the government do. Suppose I then told you that you would feel a lot better, actually, if you started to anticipate the decisions of the machine. Don't go against it. In fact, I would tell you that any attempt to second guess the machine breaks the machine. Do not at all try and tinker with the machine. Just let it decide for you. The Anglo-Saxon version of what I hope you would tell me is, I'm not going to say, but the polite version is get lost. Who wants their lives run by a machine? But then, suppose I just ask you to substitute the word market for the word machine. That's the way Friedrich Hayek conceived the market. A spontaneous, emergent order, a self-rectifying machine that can outthink all human beings. Well, that's what we did. We learn how to subordinate our lives to machine, a machine called the market. And the philosopher Michel Foucault said in these amazing lectures in the late 70s, early 80s, the Collège de France lectures, what would happen to us? We would become entrepreneurs of the self, we did, and that we would become eminently governable, and we did.
For more debates, talks and interviews, subscribe today to the Institute of Art and Ideas at iaitv.